Good morning, coffee drinkers, and welcome to another Mean Bean Machine review for www.getbeaned.com. And today we are looking at Los Pinos, a blend of coffee from Bionic Bull Roastery. Now, Bionic Bull Roastery is a tiny roastery in Hertford, in Hertfordshire, and it's actually part of my local coffee shop, the Hertford Coffee Lab. Now the Coffee Lab has stores in Hertford, Ware and Hitchin, and they roast their own coffee, and this is one of them. They usually have quite a range on, so if you're in there different days of the week, they're usually brewing different blends or, coffee from different regions. And this just happens to be a Colombian micro lot. Now, for those not in the know, micro lot is a buzzword that seems to have arisen fairly recently in kind of coffee circles. And the idea behind micro lot coffee is the principle that if you're growing a lot of coffee, you will find, on your farm there will be one prime place where your coffee grows. It's either, it's got the perfect amount of sunlight, shade, water, in this single area. So what you do is you fence off this tiny area, you produce a lot less beans from that batch of, but they're of a much higher quality. And so you sell them on for a higher price, but they'll also be a higher quality. So that's what a micro lot is in essence. So this is claiming to be a Colombian micro lot. What I do like about these coffees from this roastery is that they have all the information on, the farm, the province, the variety, how they've processed it, even the altitude and the harvest, and they've possibly gone too far with stuff you don't want to know, but if you're a coffee nerd, that's pretty cool. And they'll tell you the roast profile of if it's best for filter espresso and when it was roasted, so it's all there. Beans tend to be between £6 and £7. I think they're about £7 because if you buy 2 bags of beans, you get a free coffee in the shop that day. I spend about 2 or 3 days a week in the Hertford coffee shop, so I'm fairly used to this stuff, or their stuff. This one in particular, I don't think I've tried too often, but yes, all the information is there on the front of the pack. And we're going to give it a go as a filter coffee today because it says it's a filter coffee. Usually I drink espresso, but we're going with the filter today. Now it's Colombian, and its tasting notes are there at the bottom say sweet and complex, intense mango and strawberry notes with a caramel finish. Now, usually I associate a caramel note or a caramel finish with something that's chocolatey. The mango and strawberry is interesting because they're both, one's obviously a citrus fruit and one's a berry. So they've both got that kind of acidic taste to them. But I think it's interesting that you have a mix of 2 fruits in the description. What I'm expecting is something that probably then works really kind of nicely as a sweet dark coffee, a sweet black coffee, and probably isn't going to be particularly great with milk. But that's, for us to find out. I'm not expecting it to be too acidic because it doesn't mention kind of a citrusy fruit. You've got the tropical mango, principle, but there's no citrus note mentioned or floral notes mentioned. So I'm not expecting it to be too acidic, but I do expect there to be something in those high notes. The caramel finish suggests it might have a little bit more body than you'd expect from something kind of acidic, but we will find out. So yes, that should be my kind of brewing time up now. So let's give this bad boy a plunge and see how this comes out. Oh, I'm pouring my coffee everywhere. I really need a better cafetiere. I'll give that a look. Not bad. It doesn't smell particularly strong, but it's got quite, you can pick out the berry notes, so. That's quite interesting. It's not acidic at all. And yeah, it has those kind of strawberry notes, so I can see it, but you don't get a lot of any sort of strong flavour coming through. I think that's probably what it means by kind of complex. There's probably a lot of flavours there that are kind of a simpleton of the tongue like myself probably can't pick out too well. I mean, I've done cupping before, but you know, I'm not a taste expert when it comes to that sort of things. But there's a lot going on there. There's a lot competing, but there's no kind of high peak. It has got a kind of surprising amount of body for something I've put in a filter. You don't tend to find that so much with filter coffees. But I don't get the caramel finish, to be honest. But it is a really kind of nice, strong coffee that's not too, without that acidity. There's no kind of horrible clutching at the back of the throat or peaking on the tip of the tongue. It's kind of nice. It settles quite nicely. So it's really interesting. Kind of in terms of Colombian, is widely considered peak coffee these days. And yeah, I feel if you want a more distinctive taste, if you do like specifically acidic or something that's far more chocolatey, you wouldn't go for Colombian. Colombian, I tend to find, tends to be middle ground. I'm not going to say middle of the road because that would suggest kind of mediocrity, but it falls nicely in between those two, and I think this is what this coffee has done. I wouldn't particularly have it with milk. I might try it with milk later, but it's a nice black coffee without being too kind of in your face and you know, acidic and highly caffeinated. Oat milk in, not a lot, as you can see. The colour hasn't changed too much, but I've adjusted this to see what it is like with kind of a milk product. So yeah, again, it becomes a little overpowered, so that's why I think it's probably ideal for filter and ideal for black coffee. It's got a nice strong flavour to it, but still a milk product tends to overpower it a little too much. But that is a really nice coffee, and like I say, you get 2 bags and the cup of coffee, you know, in store. You know, if you buy 2 bags, you get the cup of coffee for free in store. So it's you know, the £7 mark is probably not the cheapest mark you're looking at, but for a roastery of a coffee shop that roasts their own coffee. And if you go into the Hartford store, you can see them roasting it. You've got the big roaster there at the back. £7 isn't bad. Plus, it does make economic sense to buy the 2 bags because they often have a lot of varieties and get that coffee as well. It is a really nice coffee, and they do have a lot of varieties. We do have a review of the Hartford store on our website, so do check that out at www.getbean.com. Thank you for watching this review. Do like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.